The rain fell relentlessly against the windows of my new home, a centuries-old mansion that exuded an air of faded grandeur. I had always been drawn to history, to the stories that lingered within old walls, and this house was a dream come true. Or so I thought. As I explored the mansion, my footsteps echoed through the empty rooms, sending shivers down my spine. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows on the walls, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. But I brushed it off as mere unease from the unfamiliar surroundings. In a corner of the grand library, I discovered a portrait covered in a dusty sheet. With a sense of curiosity, I reached out and pulled away the covering, revealing the painting beneath. It depicted a young woman, her eyes hauntingly beautiful yet filled with a sadness that seemed to transcend the canvas. As I stared into her eyes, a strange sensation washed over me. It was as if her gaze held me captive, pulling me into a world of melancholy and despair. A chill crept down my spine, and I tore my gaze away, the weight of her presence lingering in the room. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed within the house. The atmosphere had grown heavier, and a sense of unease settled over me like a shroud. I found myself returning to the library, drawn to the portrait despite my instincts screaming at me to stay away. The woman in the painting seemed to watch me, her eyes following my every move. Her expression seemed to shift, her lips curving into a faint smile that sent a shiver down my spine. I reached out, my fingers tracing the outline of her face, and a whisper seemed to brush against my ear. "Set me free." The words were soft, barely audible, yet they echoed through the chambers of my mind. I stumbled back, my heart racing, unable to comprehend what was happening. Was I losing my sanity? Was the portrait truly speaking to me? Night after night, I found myself standing before the painting, unable to resist its pull. Each time, the woman's voice grew clearer, her pleas more desperate. She told me of a tragic love story, of a life cut short by betrayal and heartache. She had been wronged, and her spirit remained trapped within the confines of the portrait, longing for release. I became obsessed with unraveling the mystery, with setting her free from her eternal prison. Guided by the whispers in my mind, I delved into the mansion's history, unearthing dark secrets that had remained hidden for generations. The more I uncovered, the stronger the connection between us became, until I felt as though her pain had become my own. One stormy night, as lightning rent the sky and thunder shook the very foundations of the house, I stood before the portrait, my hand trembling. The woman's eyes seemed to implore me, and with a deep breath, I made a decision. I would break the curse that held her captive. With a silver dagger in hand, I slashed at the canvas, the blade tearing through the image of the woman. A deafening scream filled the air, a wail of anguish that seemed to reverberate through the very walls. The room grew cold, and I could feel a presence surrounding me, an overwhelming force that threatened to consume me. And then, silence. The storm outside subsided, and the room was still once more. The portrait lay in tatters, the woman's image forever marred. But as I looked around, a sense of emptiness settled over me. The mansion was devoid of the supernatural energy that had plagued it for so long. Had I succeeded? Had I truly broken the curse? I would never know for sure, but as I stood among the ruins of the portrait, a weight seemed to lift from my shoulders. The house felt different, lighter, as though a shadow had been lifted from its halls. As I left the room, I cast one final glance back at the tattered canvas. The woman's face was now a blur of paint and canvas fragments, but her eyes seemed to hold a glimmer of gratitude. Whether I had truly set her free or simply banished a malevolent presence, I would never forget the haunted gaze of the cursed portrait and the eerie journey it had led me on.